Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show. All right, Sixers fans, welcome to another episode of Planet 76 podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Troy. Michael is here with me, as always. Episode 148 of the pod, and a few days to soak it all in, whatever you want to say. Sixers eliminated from the playoffs just a few days ago. We're recording Monday night, Monday night, May 6th, and so few days to process things, and so we're going to get into some of that conversation, obviously, and then a brief look into maybe what's to come, a look ahead to the future for the Sixers and what all that might mean. But again, Sixers season did end a few nights ago. Game 6 loss to the New York Knicks, and this is Michael and I's first time really chatting about that, and definitely the first time chatting on the pod about it. So, Michael, kind of just, I'll just hand it to you wherever you want to go with that. Obviously, there's disappointment, some frustration, some anger. Hopefully, that's a little less now a few days later. I know it is for me. But how are you doing over there, my friend? How you doing?
I'm good. I've accepted it. I've just internalized what the fact that the Sixers are no longer in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to kind of think about all the things they could have done, but at the end of the day, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should just take it as that, take it as it is, and look ahead. And I've been doing that. I'm sure you've been doing that, Troy. Basically, the whole Sixers community has been doing that ever since Thursday night, Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
But the direction of, I guess, the roster is one that looks good, looks promising, looks positive, if you will, and I'm definitely optimistic. Whether or not I should be, I am about what kind of offseason the Sixers can have, what they can do in the offseason. So I'm, okay. I definitely, what's what I'm looking for? Obviously not satisfied with the result.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's the case for everybody. Daryl Morey all the way down to us peasants down at the bottom of the organization. It is what it's over. It is what it is. It's time to look ahead, really.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's it's funny because I'm one of those guys that immediately, after the season ends, I'm like, I hate when I see things about, oh, Sixers need to go get this guy, or even when the playoff
Yeah.
series is going on, like Sixers are down 3-1, we're talking about, all right, let's, I'm not one of
Yeah.
those kind of guys, but it doesn't take me long after the season ends to get there. We're a few days out, and now I am a little more prepared to talk about some of those things and what the road ahead should look
Yeah.
like for the Sixers. So I'm trending that direction, and the more time goes on, the more I will be there as well. But, I remember last season when the Sixers season ended in May. I guess it was Mother's Day against the
Yeah.
Celtics. And you and I recorded an episode. I don't know why this one sticks in my memory, but we recorded our first one after that was, I think, called Playoff Elimination Overreacting 101, is what we called it. And because there was a lot of overreactions going on in Sixers world to how
Yeah.
that season had ended. I don't see as much of that this year. Now, if you dig deep enough, look hard enough, you're going to find some people going crazy, overreacting.
Sure.
But just as a whole, for this series, now again, the more we relive it, the more we're going to sit in it, and I get that. So we can just spend a couple minutes, but what are some things from this series that maybe you did like or you didn't like, or the reason? Okay, I can point to this ABC as to why they're at home right now through 6 games, and kind of just what your take on the series as a whole was, as the Sixers are now sitting at home.
What I liked was the fact that they didn't just give up
Mm-hmm.
when they were down 3-1. What I liked was we finally got to see Embiid do in the playoffs what he does in the regular season. Because time in and time out, people have been slandering Embiid, have been giving Embiid all of this stuff for not playing the same way, not translating to the playoffs. He finally has done that. In 4 years since the bubble, really, he's done it. He was probably arguably the best player in the first round of the playoffs. He had his best playoff series by far. He had the best playoff game of his career, at least from a scoring perspective. He had one of the most historic playoff games in history. I mean, he was the first Sixer since Allen Iverson to score 50 in a playoff game. He was the first player since MJ to score 45 points or more against the Knicks in the playoffs. That's making history.
Yeah.
Whether it's big or small, that's making history. And Joel Embiid did that, so I like that a lot. I like how the team didn't give up. I loved how Tyrese Maxey played. And I talked about this. Hold on one second. My arm's in the way. I talked about this. I guess I've talked about it. I guess I talked about it on a couple of our recaps. But Tyrese Maxey was so good in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about playoff translation? His game translated so well, almost perfectly to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
When you when you how much I say? When you have a guy like Tyrese Maxey who can shoot and score in the half court, he can reliably get his own shot in the half court. He can reliably get downhill, get to the rim. That's something that's going to translate. And I just am always so mind blown at how at the steps that Tyrese continues to take in his game. He's not going to take any more ridiculously big steps.
Yeah, right.
But we're talking about incremental improvements consistently for the next couple seasons. He's 23. He's 23 years old. This is a guy who just all he does is show up and put the work in. And outside of, I mean, there were times where he was better than Brunson. There were times where he was legitimately the second best. There were times where he was the first best player.
Yeah.
Where he was the best player in this playoff series. There were moments where he was the best guy on the floor. And from a 23-year-old, you don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. And I loved Maxey in this series. I mean, what's not to love, obviously, but like in this series specifically, really liked what he did. Not I can't really pinpoint certain things I didn't like. I wish the bench helped a little more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one thing. That's really the only thing, because that's kind of what lost them this series is you have really good players off the bench. You have really good depth, but they don't do enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a certain level that, yes, even though they're the bench players, they have to contribute, and they didn't do that. Healed, Oubre, Lowry. I wish they had Melton. That's one thing I didn't like, is why didn't Melton play much? I know he was still coming back from an injury, but I feel like he really got to help this team.
Yep.
And I'm hoping he comes back. Not a whole lot I didn't like, but the big thing was the fact that the role players didn't do enough. And excuse me. Yes, your stars win you games, but at the same time, there's only so much your stars can do. There's a reason there's 5 guys on the court, and if 3 of those guys are not playing well, you're probably going to lose. And that's what happened with the Sixers about 70% of the time. That's a totally rough number. I'm snowballing it, but that's what that's it. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and we have one here. Why did the Sixers lose? That's why they lost. They didn't get enough help production from their role guys. They didn't get enough help from their depth. And the Knicks did. And then the Knicks out-rebounded the Sixers
Yep.
insane in specifically in game 1 and 2, but for the whole series. That really, like, you might think it's just kind of reducing what happened, but in reality, it's not, because the Sixers only lost each game by 3, 4 points, 5 points, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a sign of the Sixers getting smoked. That's not a sign of things really wrong with the team or things really wrong with certain players. It's a sign that it was a close game till the end, and there were just small things the Sixers could have done to help them win.
Mm-hmm.
One being getting more out of Heald, out of Oubre, out of Harris, Tobias Harris. I mean, you have on here Tobias Harris. Like, do you want to just jump into that? Because I don't have a whole lot else to say. I mean, unless of course you can add whatever you like. Don't let me stop you. But.
Yeah. Well, I'll go to Tobias in a second, but to your point, why the Sixers lost, I mean, the textbook perfect example of why they lost is rooted in what you just said, and it's found in the fact that Sixers won 2 games in this series. The first game they won in this series, Joel Embiid scored 50. The second game they won in this series, Tyrese Maxey scored 46, including a 7-point run by himself to get the game to overtime. And they lost 4 other games, and it's because those 2 guys didn't play like, they couldn't score 50, right? Like, I mean, we're not going to blame it on, Joe didn't score 50 tonight, so they lost. But, like, that points again to, all right, obviously the supporting cast did not do enough. If the only games you won, a guy had to absolutely go off. And that's the story, right? I mean, that is the story. Jalen Brunson caused a lot of problems. I do want to get your thoughts before Tobias. I want to get your thoughts on Coach Nick Nurse and his first playoff series with the Sixers. Good, bad, and different. What did you see from Nick Nurse? I mean, obviously we followed him a little bit in Toronto, watched the whole series that he coached against us back in the day, but this is the first one where he's on our side, and just what did you think of what he did?
I have nothing bad to say. I like how he kept the rotation short mostly all the time.
Yep.
I like how he gave guys a short leash, especially Heald. I like his decision to play Payne. It ended up working so well.
Yes.
So well. And I'm just a fan of Nick Nurse. Honestly, nothing should... If you liked Nick Nurse before the season began, nothing should have changed for you. You should still like Nick Nurse. For me, nothing's changed. Everything that I've said about Nick Nurse before and during the season, it has not changed. It's not changed. I feel the exact same way about Nick Nurse now than I did, or as I did 3 months ago.
Okay. Yeah.
And he proved to me all the things that I was saying in real time, because obviously I wasn't watching him as much when he was with the Raptors as I am now that he is with the Sixers. He proved everything to me in real time. Everything I've said about him, he's proven it over this season in the playoffs, even though the Sixers lost. I'd have no complaints about Nick Nurse at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything to be upset about. I just thought, too, again, so one, we saw him in 2019, obviously, but we saw him again in whatever year that was.
22.
Yeah. And, but, the first one where he's on our side, I thought 2 of the really kind of unique decisions that I think he made in this series came in Game 5. Well, I guess it was when he brought Campaign in the first time was Game 3. That was unique. So there's 3 things. One, to do that was a good move that paid off well. Game 5, a unique thing that he did was, because Game 4, Joel Embiid didn't sit in the second half, and he just wasn't the same person in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was like, middle of the fourth quarter in Game 5, Sixers are down like 3 or 4. He gives Joel Embiid a minute to rest. Like, coaches aren't going to do that. And as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my goodness, this could go very badly. He might check back in, and the Sixers are going to be down 10.
Yeah.
And we know what happened, and Sixers won the game, and it was like, wow, that was kind of a ballsy move there for Nick Nurse to do that. And then the third thing, obviously, was Game 6 to play Buddy Hield, to give him another shot after sitting for a couple games, and There was a moment like Buddy Hield's first couple touches, he like fumbled the ball, turned it over, and it was like, oh boy, we know what that means. Buddy's getting pulled right now, right? And then I think
Yep.
there was a dead ball, and he didn't. He stayed in. And then he knocked down
Yeah.
his next few shots, and it was like, wow. So not only to keep him in, but to keep him in, or put him in, but to keep him in after kind of a couple struggles. The one weird thing that a lot of people were complaining about, I don't necessarily have that big of an issue. I kind of see the mindset was that they were upset that Buddy Hield didn't play at all in that third quarter of Game 6. Now, he came in the fourth, and I can kind of see that again, especially if you're going to give Tyrese or Joel a
Right.
break to start the fourth. Let's get someone
Right.
who's hot and get some buckets in. So I didn't necessarily mind it. It was kind of interesting, though, to do what he did in the second quarter and then not play him at all in the third. Now, someone who put up 0 points, as many points as you and I scored on Thursday night in Game 6, was Tobias Harris. Combined for as much as Michael and I did on Thursday night in an elimination game at home in front of the Sixers crowd. Let's have a conversation about Tobias Harris. Now, you and I both, I think it's fair to say, you and I both have come to Tobias Harris's defense for a long time. For 148 episodes of Planet 76, we've done that, and I'm not gonna like backslide on that at all. But there is something to be said for putting up 0 in an elimination game. Like that's we can deal with that in a different context because of what happened and when it happened.
Right.
So, Tobias Harris, man, go for it.
For starters, I want to say I think if we're going to do this properly, we have to have a Tobias Harris episode. We have to have a Tobias Harris dedicated episode just to fully unpack the player that he is. Both good and bad. Obviously, I'm not saying that because I want to just like...
And now his tenure with the Sixers.
Yes, exactly. But for now, I don't even know what to say. It's been a bumpy ride, and specifically in the playoffs this year, because I believe he dropped 19 points in Game 4, or was it 5?
Maybe I think his best game was 5.
Either way, you do that, you come back with an absolute dump of a performance. I don't get it. I don't understand. I will never try to understand being an NBA player. I'll never try and understand how to be an NBA player because I'm not one. I'm not going to be one. Never going to be close to one. So I don't understand how Tobias Harris goes from scoring 19 points to scoring 0 points. But at the end of the day, it's not even that. It's just the fact that you when you get some sort of consistency from him, it's just you get a glimpse of it and then it goes boom and it's gone. It's like a magic like genie wish. It's like and it's gone. Like it's there for a second then it's gone. I don't know what the future holds for Tobias Harris. I'm hoping it has nothing to do with Philadelphia. That's for right now. That's all I got.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a Tobias Harris episode. I'll really get into it
I
then.
think we should. That's a good call.
Yeah, but for now, that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna say I hate him. That's horrible to say because he didn't.
Yeah.
But what I'm gonna say is I just am kind of just done with it. I've received a lot of slander in the past for coming to the defense of Harris in dark times for him. But that's not to say that I'm just suddenly going to start hating on him. It's just that I can't keep like I can't keep doing that and then he just is so inconsistent. Like you can only defend inconsistencies for so long. That's kind of where I'm at. I still respect him as a player, obviously. Everything I said is still true, but I'm not going to just take back my words. But you can only put up with inconsistency for so long, is what I'll say.
Yeah, and that's fair. And Yeah, I mean, like I said, defending him for a long time right
Yeah.
here on this very show, and yet like you just can't. You cannot defend 0 points in an elimination game.
No,
You just,
you can't.
just straight up can't.
You
And
can't.
I don't want to say that I'm going to try to, because this isn't an attempt to try to. But what I find very interesting about his 0 point performance is, I can't believe I'm even saying this, is that like, just being honest, as I'm watching the game, particularly first half, I thought Tobias made some really, really great decisions. And sometimes he gets questioned for his decision making, and like, he just dribbles the ball into the into the wood, and
Yeah.
then it's over and he stops possessions. But like, there were a couple, and it's just a couple, literally just a couple. There were a couple decisions he made. One was on a pass out to Buddy Hield. One might have been a pass to Embiid, or from Embiid to someone else. He was just really, really quick with it. And like, as I'm watching, I was like, okay, wow, Tobias is doing some great things right now. But then it ended up where it was, and it's like, okay, you look at the box score at the end, and he did not score. He shot one early, I guess, and then Sixers, as they're kind of making that run to get back in it, he shoots like a mid-range, and as he's shooting, you're just like, don't shoot that. Never shoot that. Don't do that, Tobias. You haven't scored all game. It's halfway through the fourth
Right.
quarter. Don't shoot the ball.
Right.
It might have been even later in the fourth, but like, just kind of weird. And I mean, obviously he didn't get in the flow of the offense. I think it would be a little worse of a conversation if he was like 0 for 10. He was 0 for 2, just didn't get involved, and part of that is due to Buddy Hield and what he did, Nick Batum and what he was able to do, and like, they just kind of took his mojo a little bit, took his spot. He played in an elimination game, he played a series low in minutes, just 29 minutes for Tobias. Again, some of that's linked to what the other guys are doing.
Yeah.
He played 49 minutes on Tuesday in that Game 5 win, 7 for 11, 19 points, 8 rebounds, knocked down 3 threes. On the series, he only attempted 3 threes a game, which is a little low for what you kind of want from someone like him. But yeah, you got to hold me to that, hold us to that. We'll get an episode out. Go for 25, 30 minutes talking just straight Tobias Harris over the next couple weeks. We'll do that.
So we got a
That'll be
long
fun.
offseason ahead, so we can...
That's right. We might as well. So, speaking of the off season, real quick, we don't have to spend a ton of time here because obviously we will later on as it gets closer. But Daryl Morey had a press conference today, kind of talking about the future for this team, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of just said that, well, we know Embiid's here, we know Maxey's here, maybe a couple other guys that are under contract, but there's a lot of changes that could be made moving forward. There are some names that have been linked, some big names, and then I feel like there's a lot of people who are either team let's go get a star or team let's just build around the 2 stars that we already have. Some of the stars that have been mentioned: Jimmy Butler reunion. Paul George has probably been the most talked about one, as he's not happy in LA with the contracts that they've offered him via extension. Brandon Ingram, who I don't know. I think that would have to be a trade. I don't even know if he's a free agent. Is he a free agent?
I don't know.
And then some depth, just to again bolster your depth around these 2 guys. Do you have are you leaning one way or another, or have an opinion strongly on any of these things?
What would it be without my strong opinion? What would an episode be without my unwavering opinion, huh?
It wouldn't be Planet 76. So let's hear it.
I'm firmly in the camp of the Sixers should just do everything they can to get as much high quality bench depth as possible, or just depth in general. Just fill out the starting 5, bench, whatever the case may be. The Sixers need to do everything in their power to acquire those types of players. I don't care what it is. Trade all your picks. I do not care. Use your salary. Overpay on some guys if you have to. It doesn't matter. You need depth. Stars are cool, and we know Daryl Morey is going to be in the hunt for a star. We know he is. It's in his nature.
Yeah.
If there's a star available, Daryl Morey is either thinking about calling, or has called about that star. So it doesn't really matter who it is. He's going to be in the mix. However, what I think he's going to find that acquiring as much high quality depth as possible is a better option, because you need guys who, a star would be cool to have alongside Maxey and Embiid for nights when they're off or nights when they're hurt. But at the same time, you can't go all in on one star at the expense of depth, because if you pay, for example, a guy like Paul George, Jimmy Butler, you're talking about 30, 40, 50 perhaps million per year. And that's not something you can
Yeah.
do because it handicaps you. Then what if they get injured? Jimmy Butler's been having
Yep.
injury problems. Paul George has pretty much had injury problems since Indiana. What are you going to do
Yeah.
then? You lose chances to acquire high quality depth, and then you go in all in on a star, and then that star gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, having a third star would be nice, but you can have a balance of having a cumulative talent of a third star while also having high quality depth. Like, you can get the benefits of a star player with one, two, maybe even three really high quality role players. If you, for example, trade for a player like Mikal Bridges, impossible, I get it, but you are getting some benefit of a Jimmy Butler, of a Paul George. You're getting a guy who can go out and defend the other opposing team's best player, maybe even better than Butler or George can, while also giving you high quality offensive minutes, high quality offensive production, really good 3-point shooter, really good slasher, pretty good scorer overall. You're getting some of those benefits of star through a cheaper, lower risk player who's like 8 years young, 7 years younger than these guys. So you're looking towards the future, but you're also chipping into now, to the present. Obviously, not every high quality role player fits the Mikal Bridges archetype, nor are they as talented as him. But you get what I'm saying. The Sixers can get something, or I should say, they can get similar production and similar talent level from a few high quality role players as they could potentially from a Jimmy Butler or a Paul George, without committing 40, 50 million on one guy and spreading the wealth
to a 34-year-old.
Yeah, to a 34-year-old. I almost said 43. To a 34-year-old, spreading the wealth, literally, figuratively, obviously, but literally spreading the wealth to multiple high-quality role players. Insert anybody who is really good here. Whoever it is, I have to look at all the free agents. Trade your picks.
Now, yeah.
Trade your picks. Trade some salary if you have to. Salary filler. Do it. The Sixers don't have a ton of picks, but I'm sure that they could make Daryl Morey. If there's one thing that I've learned from the past few years of the Sixers organization, you are a fool if you doubt Daryl Morey. You are a fool if you expect him to do nothing, or if you expect him to just make a bogus move and not shake things up for the better. You're a fool. So I'm not a fool. I know Daryl Morey. I don't know him, obviously. I don't know him as a person, but I know what he's capable of. I know his intentions. I know his tendencies, and honestly, everybody should too, because you've been seeing the same person I've been seeing. So we know how this is going to go. I'm just hoping that perhaps he kind of shifts his mindset away from let's go star hunting to let's go depth hunting.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, full disclosure, I am like squarely on the fence.
No, you have to choose. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I really feel like I am. I keep going back and forth, and because I can see the argument for both.
Yeah.
Now, your point, because I'm listening to you, now I'm getting swayed that way because like
No, you can't let me sway you though. You have to make up.
Oh, I'm swayed. I have been swayed. Because there's more risk in a Jimmy Butler, Paul George, and it's the point that you made of, okay, they're injured, now what? Right? If you bring in 4 quality role players and one of them might get hurt, but you're not in as bad a shape as you would be if one of those other guys gets hurt that you bring in. Now, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, it seems like the one is Paul George, like that's constantly been linked. Now, I'm a big fan of Paul George. I love his game. He's just so incredibly smooth to watch. Not that I watch like a lot of Clippers games, but when I watch Paul George play, he is impressive. He just is. He just is.
He's great.
And what I was thinking even today is, let's hypothetically here, Paul George was on the Sixers this past season, and he's in the playoffs against the Knicks, and he's healthy. Now that's a big if. All of those things, two of those things are impossible, but one's a big if that he's healthy. But Tobias Harris isn't here. Paul George is here. I still think the 76ers are playing basketball right now. I'll put it that way.
I can't really argue with that. I mean, how
right?
How would you argue with that? Is my question.
I don't think you can. So I think that's one argument for saying, okay, because Paul George is just a different level, different type of scorer. He shoots more threes. Right. He kind of, he hasn't played alongside a Joel Embiid type, obviously. Not, unless you have played with Joel, you haven't played with someone like him. So who knows? But I'm a pretty big fan of that. I do understand the risk that's involved with that. The other thought I have, and it is kind of a cop-out answer, is if you go and you want to hunt like depth, like you better get the right players. Yeah. Because the Sixers did a thing to bolster their depth this year, and obviously it wasn't enough in the playoffs. Now, if Joel Embiid didn't get hurt for 2 months and they had a rhythm and all those things, like who knows? But obviously the depth that they did acquire this year wasn't enough. So how do you ensure that you're getting the right guys? Like, I mean, let's go get Malik Monk. Like, oh my goodness, let's go get Malik Monk.
Cool with that.
I know he's linked to Orlando, I believe, even lately. But there are some guys out there, but you got to make sure they take you to that next level. And if they don't, right, if we're just going to sit here and say, and I know it's not going to happen, we're going to sit here and say the Sixers are going to bring back the whole team. Melton's back. Oubre's back, Payne's back, Batum's back. Like, I'm not going to feel very good because I'm not going to feel like we're at that level yet. And so in that case, I'd rather go get Paul George. But if you bring in some excitement and some guys that can score off the dribble, like seems like every year we're talking about the Sixers team that can't freaking score off the dribble unless their name's Tyrese Maxey or Joel Embiid. But anyway, all that to say, it's a tough decision. It's a tough call. I do think it squares on, okay, are you confident you can go get the right 3 or 4 guys versus a one in Paul George? And I don't know who some of these guys are. I'm looking at free agents. Reggie Jackson's a free agent. Buddy Hield's a free agent. Markelle Fultz, let's bring him back.
Wow, how about that?
Bruce Brown.
Oh.
Patrick Beverley.
Barf.
Malik Monk, Campaign, Josh Richardson. Let's do that experiment again. Klay Thompson, Lonnie Walker the fourth.
That minimum, that'd be cool with me.
Yep. In the forwards, there's a guy named LeBron James.
Huh. Yeah, he sounds kind of familiar, right? Lakers,
yeah.
right?
Caleb Martin, Derek Jones Jr., Marcus Morris Sr., Kelly Oubre would like him back. Siakam's a free agent.
No thanks. He's probably going to extend it in Indiana anyway.
Yes. But yeah, so to me, I don't know. The one that jumps off the page for me is Malik Monk. Mm-hmm. Now, he could be going somewhere else. But to your point, let's overpay a little bit and let's go get him.
Well, I would wait because I feel like if I'm overpaying, it's going to be for Melton.
Uh-huh.
And rightfully so. If he's going to be like, yo, they're offering me $20 million a year, you're like, well, what about 22? Because I'm not letting him go. If I'm the Sixers, I'm not doing it. Not only because they traded for him and they got him for basically for free, but he's just exactly what they need. Like, another competent ball handler who can defend and shoot threes. Not super great at creating his own shot, but they have guys for that. I mean, Maxey, Embiid, if you bring back Payne, if you bring back Lowry, like they're pretty good. I'm not so concerned with that because Maxey can do it, And like, yeah, it's gonna be nice to have another guy or two who can do that, and you can depend on them to do that. But at the same time, it's like if you got guys who can hit shots and hit threes, defend, cut, like
It's the new NBA.
yeah, you don't need a ton of guys who are elite self-creators. Like Maxey has gotten so good at that.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right. He's the only reason we're having this conversation
Yeah.
is because of the step that he took in his game this year where we're saying, he's good
Yeah.
enough, right? Where we don't need another one. So what would you say real quick? Like, you don't have to name names unless you have names. Like, if we're going the let's build around these two route versus acquiring a star, we're not acquiring a star. We're just building around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. What does that team look like? You know, whether it's, okay, we want a guy that's playing the four that's going to shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. We want a guy that's going to, defend the other team's best player. Like, what's the vision look like for, potential starting five?
Oh. The vision is, okay, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, obviously. We have D'Anthony Melton back, starting.
Mm-hmm.
We have Mikal Bridges trading everything possible. Wait, they won't actually be able to get this last guy if they get Bridges. Never mind. I was gonna say Bobby Portis, but they can't do that. It's not happening. Maybe one day. Not this offseason. Mikal Bridges throwing the farm at Brooklyn. Hopefully they accept. And then I'm also trying to think.
Nick Batum.
Yeah, if hopefully he doesn't retire, that'd be cool. Bring him back on like a couple million a year, maybe.
Yep. Kelly off the bench. We like Kelly off the bench.
Kelly's tricky because no doubt someone's going to offer him a ton of money. But will the Sixers match it? Will the Sixers be like, okay, they're offering you $15 million, we'll give you 17. It's a lot for Kelly Oubre. I'm not doing that. Like, that's a lot for Kelly Oubre. I draw the line.
Okay.
If he's offered more, if Kelly Oubre is offered more than $12 million, you can have him. That's it. That's too much in my opinion. People might think he's worth more. I don't. Respectfully, I don't.
All right, last thing. Any predictions for the finals, NBA Finals matchup? Who you can see getting there and who's going to win it all? Any thoughts there?
Finals prediction, it's just always so deflating when the NBA playoffs are still going on and your team isn't in them.
Agreed.
But I don't even know. My initial prediction was Nuggets Celtics in the finals, kind of chalk because they're arguably two best teams in the conference. The way Minnesota's playing Denver right now, I guess it wouldn't shock me if they make it.
Yeah.
Kind of still would shock me though. And out of the East, I can't see anyone beating Boston. I think the Knicks could give them a good series, but I think Boston's going to win. So I'm going to go Boston and I guess Minnesota or Denver. Yeah. But I'm just going to go with my original prediction of Nuggets Celtics. So.
All right, who's winning?
I got Nuggets in 6.
All right, nice. I'm glad you didn't say Celtics. So it's funny, you almost did exactly what I did earlier today.
Really?
Yeah, so I said almost word for word, like about the Celtics. Oh, I think Knicks will give them a tough series, but Celtics will win. So Celtics in the finals, and then I said after Minnesota went up 1, I get that, but now that they're about to go up 2-0 and head home, I did say Minnesota to the finals. Yeah, without Rudy, and then I could not absolutely positively never bring myself to pick the Celtics. So we're going Minnesota over the Celtics in a good series. That would be a fun one to watch. But and like you said, it is hard. It is hard when your team's out. So hopefully by that point I'll be ready to watch some basketball again. I barely watched the end of the Pacers game, Knicks game tonight. Knicks got some more home cooking, by the way. Holy cow. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. This is Planet 76, episode 148 of the podcast. We'll be back shortly with some more content. Definitely a Tobias Harris episode coming your way shortly, and we will see you next time. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.